Hello, my name is Giusti. Today we're going to be looking at a 10-minute little video of one of my lessons. This lesson is covering debate class, which is like one of the more difficult subjects at my school to teach because it involves a lot of conversation and talking and arguing, right? So we're just going to quickly go through this PPT. There's going to be no student interaction, unfortunately, because I'm not in a classroom. I'll be doing this at home. So I hope you enjoy. So I'll get started by teaching students like, hey, I want you to speak English in this class, no Korean. Encourage English. Next part, I would get into debate and say, what is it? So debate is an argument about a topic. I would give them some ideas about that. For instance, do you think it's good to go to private academies, Hagwons? They'd be like, oh, yes, no. Like, oh, why? Some would agree, some would disagree. So I would get them to argue about that. Mostly kids would disagree, right? An argument is an exchange in opposite or different views. So I would be like, oh, this side said yes, and this side said no. I'm like, you guys are arguing against each other right now. Part 1, opinions. Opinion is, what do you think? And I would get them talking by saying, oh, what do you think about me? What do you think about Mr. Nick? And they'd be like, oh, Mr. Nick is handsome. I'm like, oh, yeah, and what else? And I'd be like, oh, strong, smart, right? So I would get them laughing about the topic, you know. The next part, I would say, so that's your opinion about me, about Mr. Nick. And opinion is, what do you think? What you think, right? So that is your opinion. Next part, I would discuss two types of opinions. First one is agree, to have the same opinion about something, and the next one is to disagree, to have a different opinion about something. So I would say, oh, do you think ice cream is a very sweet food? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I agree for that. And I'd be like, oh, okay, how about this? Is homework very fun? And I'd be like, oh, disagree, right? Next, I would start taking roll call at this point. This was an easy roll call exercise. So I would go to each student, get them to argue about this. Is Big Bang the best K-pop band ever? Do you agree or do you disagree? And I would have a little target sensor in here that says, I agree because blah blah blah, and I disagree because blah blah blah. So I would get the students to either raise their hand or something like that, and then I would go through them and ask for their opinion. I usually encourage them by giving like coins, like stamps, which was like, you know, a good thing that they would want. So if they responded, I would give them a stamp, an award for answering something in class or doing something in class. Another one I did was, is going to private academy is good for children, and they would agree and disagree to this as well. I blah 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 because blah, right? And sometimes I would give them hints as well, you know, to encourage their speaking, because sometimes they didn't know too well. So I would give them hints, be like, oh, you probably agree because it would be really good for your grades and stuff like that. So if they struggled in class, I usually would help them with hints, with some way, and then they would be able to speak the sentence. Next one. So I'd be like, okay, so we answered those questions, those statements that I just stated. Why? Why did you agree? Why did you disagree? You agreed or disagreed, you usually have a reason. And the reason is explain why you agreed or disagreed. So, by the way, this is kind of an older PPT. I have a newer one, but I couldn't find it in my emails. So I'm going with the older one. Usually there would be a description on the bottom. Here are the target sentences that I would want them to try to say. Of course, they could use whatever sentence they wanted, but if their English wasn't there, I would give them target sentences to use. So here are the target sentences. I was like, I agree because blah, blah, or I disagree because blah. I usually would have them read the sentences. I agree because blah, or no, I disagree because blah. I agree with blah because blah, or I disagree with blah with blah, right? And then I would say, what's here? Reason. And here you would put 9 or so. Part 2, debate. So here, I would split them into groups, and then I would give them a topic, right? I would give them a topic to discuss in their groups, and they would have to come up with a couple of reasons for those topics, for their argument. So, the big question was, should students have to wear school uniforms? And they would agree or disagree to this. I agree because blah, 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 and I disagree because blah, blah, blah. And then I would give them a timer to come up with their reasons. I would go around, help them out, make sure they're using correct sentences, their grammar is correct, stuff like that, or help them out with some hints. And then I would give them 3 minutes. Boom. We would end that, and then we would talk about our subjects, right? We would talk about why you agreed or why you disagreed. And I put them in the groups that they wanted, so I would ask if they wanted to be the green group or this green group, or I would just assign them it. I would also go over rebuttal, which is I would encourage them to argue against those reasons, tell me why they think it's a bad reason or something like that. And I would say argument or rebuttal is you fighting back, and that would be the judge. Here I would just score. I'd be like, oh, I like your reason, good job, give them a point. And I was like, oh, if they had a really good rebuttal, I'd give them a point there, stuff like that. There are pros and cons. If there was more time in the class, I'll go over pros and cons. And pros are the advantages of the situation, cons are the disadvantages, so the good things and the bad things. And then we would just go into some example. Should you get yearly flu shots? These are some pros. Here are some cons. Here are some more target sentences I would go over. And then I would have like a story debate. I went over story debate. I thought it was pretty cool. So I would have them read this and go over some of the highlight points. And then I would say, what are the pros and cons for the story? Like, why did Jack go against his mother's orders, and whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Give them some time to go over it, and they would discuss the pros and cons. And then I would go over them and be like, oh, you guys got some pros, you guys got some cons. So I'll give them points for that. And of course, you get points. That was basically it. Sign some homework at the very end and give them handout stamps or something like that. So that's basically the debate. Review at the very end too. So that sort of thing. That usually took up 45 to 50 minutes, easy. Kids did very well in it, and it was a pretty good class for being debate. A lot of the teachers that observed me in educational community that came in thought I made debate class pretty simple, and when it was a very difficult class to teach. And these are students that I had to teach that didn't know much about debate, so it was like kind of a crash course on debate. So, yeah, that's it. Sorry if it was kind of boring. I know I didn't have any student interaction. I'm going to be sending a separate video to show a skit I did with one of my groups, so that will show some student interaction. Hope you enjoyed, and you may look over at your own will, just the lesson plan and the PPT I will send to you as well. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.